wonder of wonders, support for impeachment of the President of the United States is dropping like a rock. And the Democrats, they know that they're in trouble. They are scared. Also, when it appears that God has let us down. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. Welcome to the program, friend. Basically, every news outlet in the country is reporting on the fact that the polling data, especially among independents, the polling data shows that support for impeaching President Trump is falling, going down, like a lead balloon. This is a huge problem for the Democrats, because if they continue going forward on this hell-bent suicidal mission, it means that there will be a price to pay at the polls. But let's take one step backwards. If support for the impeachment is falling, why is that? It's because people are watching the impeachment proceedings. They're seeing what you and I are seeing, and that is there's no there there. There's nothing there. If the President of the United States, who sets foreign policy, cannot have a discussion like he had with President Zelensky of Ukraine, then foreign policy set by the president is done. Every single president since Jimmy Carter has used foreign aid to extract something from the government and the leaders of that government that were receiving U.S. money. So I'm going to go a little bit out on a limb here, all right? I'm going to say something that the Republicans aren't saying. I'm going to say something that the media isn't saying, and that is this. President Trump, as the president, as the boss of the Attorney General, as the boss of the CIA, as the boss of the FBI, President Trump has the legislative constitutional right and duty to ask if crimes are being committed. So there's three separate issues. One is, did Ukraine meddle in the 2016 election? Two is, do they have this CrowdStrike computer? And I know about as much as you do about it, but evidently there's some computer data that's out there that may show criminal acts involving certain people in the Democrat hierarchy. And then three is Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, when he was vice president, demanding that the prosecutor in Ukraine be fired who was investigating his son Hunter and Burisma, the company that was paying him $50,000 a month when he knew nothing about Ukraine, nothing about gas. So now it's starting to come out that there were a flurry of phone calls being made by then Vice President Joe Biden at the time that it became clear, because the New York Times told Joe Biden that the prosecutor in Ukraine was investigating Burisma and his son was on the board of Burisma. Oh, look, he might be investigating your son. So was the fact that Hunter Biden was on the board the reason that Joe Biden demanded that the prosecutor be fired who was investigating Burisma? And then it basically stopped. This was a corrupt company. Everybody knew they were corrupt. So was it an insurance policy to put Hunter Biden on the board because they knew that if Burisma, if it got too hot to handle, if Burisma got in a little bit of trouble, that they could just call up the phone, the son? Hey, Hunter, we've got a problem. The investigators over here, the criminal folks, are investigating us, and boy, I wish there was something we could do. Hold on, I'll call my dad. Because the Obama administration had pledged $1 billion in loan guarantees, if my memory is correct. And Biden went over there and said, if you don't fire the prosecutor in the next 6 hours, you're not getting the $1 billion. That has the smell of corruption. So those three issues may involve a criminal act. And so if President Trump says, we're about to give these guys another $1 billion, this $1 billion is in military aid, but they have been rife with corruption. This is arguably, by all accounts, even everybody who testified in a way that could hurt the president in the impeachment hearings has been saying that Ukraine had a pattern of deep-seated corruption involving the most powerful people in the country in government. So it's possible that we were giving more money, another $1 billion to people who were corrupt. So let's assume for just 1 second that it wasn't Vice President Biden who is now a candidate. Could President Trump have made that phone call and asked them to investigate, did they meddle in the 2016 election? Why not? If they did and there was criminal acts that were committed, wouldn't we want to know? Could they ask, can you find out about this CrowdStrike server? It may have evidence of crimes that were committed here in America. Wouldn't he have the right to do that? Could he pick up the phone and talk to the Chancellor of Germany or any number of political figures around the world and say, hey, we have a problem and our governments have an agreement to fight crime together. Would you look into this? I mean, are they actually saying that he can't do that? And then the third thing is, if Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, if they were not a political family, and if Joe Biden was not running for president right now, would people be saying that President Trump could not say, hey, we want you to look into this, and we are going to withhold money until we're certain that this investigation is at least going forward? Again, every president since Jimmy Carter has used foreign aid to leverage something out of the countries that often involved policy in those countries or how those countries related to us. Why do you think we give foreign aid? We give foreign aid so that we can get something. There is some national security interest or financial interest or political interest or military interest, deep water port, airfield, a place to park our missiles, whatever. That's why we give foreign aid. All of it is a quid pro quo. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the reason that that the Democrats are screaming their lungs out is solely because it has the potential to show deeply unethical and perhaps deeply criminal conduct by the Democratic Party, leaders, maybe the Clinton campaign, maybe Clintons themselves, maybe Joe Biden. There's something so foul here that the Democrats are trying to get ahead of it and screaming for the impeachment of President Trump, who is using his constitutional authority to get to the bottom of these three things, any one of which could involve criminal acts and a criminal conspiracy with people in America and people in Ukraine. And if the President of the United States doesn't have the right, the duty to ask something like that, what planet are we on? But I'll go a step further. If all it takes is running for office to preclude a criminal investigation against you, we should all run. Because that's the way you get the insurance policy, that you can be Teflon. You can have, why fool around with the mafia when you can get into the ultimate in organized crime? American politics. I'll be right back. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. Last night I was reading about the conquest of New Spain, the conquest of Mexico by Hernando Cortez. And if this is a part of history that for whatever reason you have not studied or read, and there's some really good literature out there, including an eyewitness account that is translated into English called The Conquest of New Spain by a man whose last name was Diaz, and I can't remember his first name, please forgive me. He was there with Cortez. And what they went through as soldiers was beyond imagination. It was one of the most heroic military campaigns in the history of the human race. And I will go on record here as saying that I believe God sent them. I believe that God handpicked Cortez. I believe that God gave them supernatural graces to break the back of human sacrifice in this hemisphere. The eyewitness accounts of what was happening to innocent people by the tens and hundreds of thousands is beyond description. So vulgar, so vile. Just literally, and I'm going to give a break here for children to be escorted from the room. But on top, I've been to Mexico City. I've been on top of these pyramids where they used to sacrifice human beings. They would take them and they would cut their hearts out while they were still alive. They would hold up their beating hearts. They would hack off their limbs and throw them down. And the leading source of meat at different times in Mexico City was human flesh. The leading source of meat for human consumption was human flesh. People that were sacrificed at these demonic temples. And when Cortez and his men landed, they didn't even know. You ever heard the expression, burn the boats? Cortez had 10 ships. He gave his men a chance. Anybody who wants to go back, get on that last boat because it's leaving. And then he set fire to the other 9 and said, we've sent a message back to the emperor, King of Spain, King Charles, and we are not going to, we're either going to live and prevail or we're going to die. And they got alliances with some of the victims, some of the smaller tribes that were having to pay their taxes in the form of their sons and daughters to be sacrificed. So I believe that God sent them to destroy human sacrifice. But it took the better part of 10 years for the locals to begin to convert to Christianity en masse, to go away from the pagan demonic religions that they had been trapped in for centuries. So I give you this as a backdrop because Lord, please forgive me. I feel like I need to be honest with you, and God's not afraid of doubt. God's not afraid of questions. But there are times where I get really upset and I say to God, why do you let this happen? Don't you care? Why are there over 1 million babies being butchered every year? Why do we have Nancy Pelosi and people who betray their Christian faith, who say they're Catholic and then push to murder babies? Why do we have American clergy, Roman Catholic, evangelical, who are cowards, who won't fight evil? Why are you letting this happen, oh God? And it popped into my head, breaking the back of human sacrifice in Mexico took massive courage. It took these men risking their lives. Many of these soldiers, scores of them, were captured by the Mexicans. And the Mexicans in battle, when they fought the Aztecs, they would do everything in their power to not kill a soldier. They wanted to take him alive so they could strip him of his gear and take him to the top of one of these pyramids and cut their heart out to offer them to their pagan gods. They were cutting the hearts out and cutting the heads off of the Christian soldiers who were trying to free people from human sacrifice. This was no game. So the picture that I had was me complaining, God, why are you letting this happen? And just like a snapshot where I saw an army and the leader of the country, the king or the president of the country, had given this army everything they needed to fight. All the weapons they needed, the armor, everything. But they didn't want to fight. And so they were overrun by the enemy. And then they complained that they were overrun. Oh, the president doesn't care about us. The king doesn't care about us. He's letting this happen to us. He gave you the weaponry, and you refused to fight. I've got to take a break. I'm going to continue on with this theme. Please, there's more. I promise I won't be repetitive. Don't go away.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. Its teachings are good and peaceful. And those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah.
We have reaffirmed again and again that the United States is not and never will be at war with Islam. Islam teaches peace.
Islam is a religion of peace. They are not Muslims, they are monsters.
We've been told that Muslim terrorists have hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam. But Islamic art and literature tell a very different story. To know the truth, we only have to study the narrative of the founder of Islam, Muhammad, in his own words. Welcome back, friend. So I see this army in my mind's eye complaining and whining, but they have been given the armaments that they need to prevail. But they just have to fight. They have to learn how to use the weapons. They have to be willing to take risks. They have to be willing to make sacrifices. They have to be willing to lose their lives, but they will prevail if they fight. I think that you can see where this is going. I'm complaining to God. Why? How come you've let this get like this? And it's like, but God or his angels saying, we've given you everything you need. I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. I've given you battering rams. I've given you the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. I've given you promises in the scriptures. But the problem is this. We want to reduce the weaponry that God has given us to simply prayer. Well, I'm just going to pray and it's all going to get better. That's not what the Bible teaches, people. It's just not. The Spaniards, the English, people could have been praying until the end of time to stop human sacrifice in Aztec Mexico. But it took war, it took violence, it took sacrifice, it took risk. We could have all prayed for the Nazis to stop killing Jews, but it took tanks and planes and sacrifice and soldiers. And then after they won, you still had millions of people in Mexico that were pagans. Then it took another wave of people to come to sacrifice their time, their comfort, their energy, their reputation to evangelize, to lead men and women to Christ, to baptize them. It all takes utilizing the weapons and the tools that God has given us. It's not God's fault that America is turning into a moral cesspool. Where do you think that the blame might lie? I'll be right back with the answer. What Would Mohammed Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, "I learned more from What Would Mohammed Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life." Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, "What Would Mohammed Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Muhammad and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced." Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700, or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. There's a verse in the book of James that says, "Be not many teachers, for they shall receive the greater condemnation." That's the King James Version. It's a warning saying don't take it upon yourself to teach the scriptures because you're going to receive a more vigorous judgment, greater scrutiny on the day of judgment. I submit to you that the reason America is plummeting into hell, or lurching into hell, whatever you want to say, that it has been a steady downward spiral since the late 50s and early 60s. Just more and more debauched, more and more dead babies, more and more unspeakable sexual crimes and sins, and just fill in the blank. The push to socialism, the move to take away our right to defend ourselves, all of it. It's from hell. But I submit to you that this spiral down is not because of some predestined will of God that the devil's going to prevail, and it's not because this is the devil's world, because it's not. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. It's not because of some end-time scenario in which the Antichrist is going to emerge and defeat us all. No, Jesus said, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail." For this reason, John wrote, "For this reason the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil." We're called to be made in the image of Christ. That means we're going to be devil's works destroyers. But we've been losing. Why is that? Because like that army illustration where all of that equipment was given and they wouldn't fight, even more of the blame would rest with the teachers. "Be not many teachers, for they shall receive the greater judgment." And by teachers, I mean pastors, evangelists, so-called prophets, Bible teachers, priests, bishops of every conceivable denominations, elders, who have taken the scriptures and either through perverting them and twisting them, have made not the church militant. They're not trying to teach people how to be the church militant. They're trying to teach them how to be the church passive, the church squishy, the church in retreat. They're giving them excuses how not to fight, or they're completely abandoning the portions of the scripture that require us to be engaged in this world at every level. There's nothing in the Bible that says politics is of the devil. Nothing. And the exact opposite is in the Bible. Romans chapter 13 says that the civil magistrate is the servant of God. But if the servants of God don't fill that role and wicked people do, like Adolf Hitler or any number of American pagans, then you get paganism in government because Christians have abdicated their duty, because Christian leaders and teachers are not telling their people to get in the fight. I'm out of time. Go to my website, randallterry.com. Help us learn.